Today, I'm going to show you exactly how I composed and mixed a track that got used on the trailer of a NASCAR documentary. Hey everyone, my name is Wilson and I'm a music composer and mixing engineer. Today, I'm going to show you how I composed and mixed my song called Hunting the Firestarter. This is a really dark but powerful cinematic trailer style song. And since it was placed recently, I thought it'd be a great idea to kind of open up the session and just show you what's going on. You'll find value in this video if you're interested in composing, mixing, or music licensing and how you need to arrange music to get it used in these kind of commercial productions. Please make sure you like and subscribe. And if at any point you have questions, go ahead and drop them down in the comments and I'll be happy to answer. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to play the full song in this video. I'm also not going to show the trailer that it was placed in because I'll probably get a copyright strike. But if I can find it, I'll link it down in the description below so you can go check out how it was used in the context of video. This breakdown is just going to focus on what I did in my session. I'll play you a little bit of the intro here. It does come in hot, so if you're in headphones, make sure to check your volume. Okay, there's already a lot going on there. So the way I have my session laid out, basically, I have all my different groups of instruments colored and grouped together, and they all are routed to kind of a bus. So these are all my drums, they go to a bus. All my like effects and risers and drops, they go to, I call it the impact mix. I don't know why I called it that, but it is impact. All my basses, all my strings and horns go to an orchestra. All my vocals go to a Vox thing here. All of my synths and keys go to a keys mix, and then all the guitars go to a guitar mix. And then over here I have a few bus effects. I have a smash for parallel compression, then I have a room reverb, a distortion drive, a delay, and then a big washy reverb. All these go to an effects bus just in case I need to adjust the whole volume. And then everything either goes to this mix minus drum or this mix bus. The reason I had the mix minus drum set up is because I had this tremolo plugin that was stuttering literally the whole mix except for drums, but I don't have that plugin anymore. So I just took it off. You can't really tell that it's not there, but so it all goes to the mix bus and then all that goes to the stereo out. The song is basically broken up into three main sections that I call acts. So like act 1, act 2, act 3. And these basically just provide edit gaps for whoever's going to be editing this and splicing it in with video. And so when I export this, I actually deliver different acts separately as well as one whole thing. Just so that way, like if you're cutting to video, you have time for that tail at the end of an act to trail off and you can start act 2 when you want and not when I printed it together, if that makes sense. So this first act is very kind of atmospheric, but I did want to start it kind of with a hook to get your attention. So that's what that first section is that I played. It's just a big like boom kind of thing. So basically I started with the idea for the vocals. So I just set up my mic and I sang like, it must have been like 8 to 16 layers of just a high and a low, no parts or anything. So that sounds like this. And then a big washy reverb on the end. And that reverb, a little bit of chroma. They're actually both chroma verbs. So one of them is orchestra chamber, the one I'm using for room. And then the wash is Greek wash. And then I tweaked them a little bit. So that's what that is. And then I wanted to kind of thicken it up more. So I grabbed this. It's called Spitfire Originals Epic Choir. So it didn't have an O, unfortunately, but I still wanted to use it. So I did an ah. So the tenors and the basses. So those two together. And then it's much lower than my vocal. I wanted my vocal to be prevalent, but I just wanted those choirs to kind of thicken it up. So here's all of that. And then I added some strings and horns just on the low note there. I had this dark piano from Keyscape. I added guitars. It's all just one big, either it's on the part, the moving line, or it's on the bass note. So here's the guitars added. And then the drums accentuate that and add in some other hits. So I'm using a mixture of damage and action strikes to kind of make my drum sound. So here is Damage by itself. Here's Action Strikes by itself. The important thing when I layer drums is I make sure they're all playing the same part. So if it's like a low drum, it's playing whatever part the low drums are playing, or like a mid or a high. They're all doing the same thing. So it just feels like one big ensemble. It looks like I did another instance of Action Strikes. Oh, that's a big one. So all together. The other really important thing for this type of genre are risers and hits and all of that kind of stuff. So here are the risers. I made just about everything either in Native Instruments rise and hit, or I just tweaked like synths and stuff. So here's what this all sounds like. And then it's quiet, and then it does another little hit here. And so with the drums, it really works well together. That's that whole section. From there, it's this ambient kind of building a little bit of tension. So I'll go ahead and play it. So I made this. Oh, what did I use for this? It was one of the Native Instruments, like does a bunch of weird sounds, and then I like automated a bunch of different parameters. So I have a kind of a filter sweep here that I did with Logic's channel EQ. So as it goes, it kind of rolls up. So it starts really closed off, and it'll slowly open up the top. And then when I get about halfway through, it opens up the bottom as well. And I did Logic step effects to add in some weird kind of rhythm to it. And then it's full range there. So it just kind of eases into the full frequency spectrum so that the track kind of feels like it grows along the way there. Some more kind of hits and risers and stuff. So I have this choir. I called it Quiet Choir. Sounds like there's some people going, ha, like way back in the background. The bulk of the sound here is this dark piano, like pedal tone on the bass, and then the piano's moving up top. And then I put in this pad. I either used Omnisphere or a Contact library for this. And then I played a guitar through just a bunch of crazy reverbs. I think I used a Strymon Timeline and a Strymon Big Sky together to get this sound, but I just wanted a really big kind of icy, shimmery top on it. Tons of bouncing delays, all sorts of stuff. Also did another guitar, just kind of weird noise and stuff. It's more of a lead with like a reverse delay on it. And then I did this little alchemy, like plucky synth. Kind of sounds like Stranger Things, but don't tell anybody. Lots of delay and reverb. Really like tight envelope. So that's all that's happening there. And then it stops here, and I just let it breathe. So this brings us into kind of the second act. So we're trying to pick up energy at this point and just increase the overall like intensity, like something's coming. So I started this section by taking the vocals and filtering them down. So I have another channel EQ doing a filter thing here, and as it goes. Where's it at? There it is. As it goes, it opens up the filter here by itself. And I think I did the same thing with the guitars. I did. So guitars and vocals get filtered out there. Just kind of thickens it up. And then the piano also doubles that line. Same drum layers as before. So I had fun with this. I just wanted something big and ridiculous because that's what you need to do for trailers. The first layer of this weird synth is Alchemy. It's kind of my sub layer. And it bends down while the filter opens. The next one, I called it Spin. This is probably the... And then I have a pad finally. So basically this bass one is just handling the subs, the lows, kind of make the room rumble kind of thing. This pad one is kind of my mid-range, like gritty one. And then the spin one adds a cool texture on top. And it almost makes the low end sound like it's distorting, which is cool. That's kind of why I did it that way. I supported that with this. It's called Trash. I don't know why I called it Trash. It's a riser and hit kind of thing. Kind of more of a splashy. But then I kind of punctuated it with my drums hitting as well. So all of that. So that's everything. And it's basically a call and response between like the filtered down original melody and that synth line. Now it's all a little more open because the filter's opening up. So right here is kind of cool. I basically, for right here, I had a bass drop, but it was too much with the synth also bending down. So I took out the bass drop, but I just took part of it and reversed it and sped it up. So leading into that drop, you have this like, just a little like zip up kind of. And then that, there is like a little click, but you don't hear it because it's all in that big transient. So now halfway through, basically same kind of call and response that continues to open up, but then I started bringing in more synths, a little bit of rhythm in the drums, strings and horns start to come in. So we're really starting to like fill out the arrangement at this point. So here's what it sounds like, and then I'll break the sections down. The drums added some rhythm here. I used most of the rhythm from Action Strikes, like the ensemble mode where you hold a key and it goes and plays all the things. And I put some timpani in there, kind of following the notes. Some tom fills and stuff. Okay, so a few things coming in here. I made this like weird little like clap and click loop because I just wanted that like top end kind of texture. Makes it a little electronic too, kind of gives it like a modern feel to it. So that's all that does. Action Strikes adds in like this topper. Kind of doing triplets. So the backbeat from the claps really helps to give it energy there. And then same thing, I just have all my risers kind of supporting the hits there. Play it all together. Just big swells, big hits. then a big Omnisphere patch that I turned into a bass drop. I have 2 different basses come in here. So I have this really low sub pulse that I made in Omnisphere. And then I used Reactor Monarch to make this kind of lower. So this Moog sub here is like the low end of it. It has a little bit of top to cut through, but the majority of the job of this is to just be that bottom end. And then the sub pulse is like an extra texture on top. So there's just the top, and I rolled off some lows, probably in SSL native. Next are strings. So I just wanted some string presence, like start to take us into that orchestral realm, kind of cinematic realm. And it builds as it goes. Super cool. That with the Moog synth is just really nice. Plus the movement textures from the drums. Additionally, there is, the guitars are still rolling. I brought in some other synth elements. So there's this other thing here. The Regent says sub pulse because I copied it. So this has like kind of a pulse on it. And then I kind of layered that with this other little I used Echo Boy to kind of get a wide delay on it, and then lots of delay and reverb on my buses. And I opened the filters as I went with it. I used the arpeggiator to make that triplet 16th feel on it. The whole idea of that section is keep all the other arrangement outside of the main melody. I still want it rhythmic and exciting, but really out of the way. So it's all just like kind of triplet, like vibey stuff. And it saves room for those guitars and vocals to really like shine and open up as it goes. So the final section, I'll go ahead and play it and then I'll explain all the things because you really need to feel this like in one chunk. Okay, so there's kind of 3 sections to this third act. There's like the build up, which is this, right? And then there's kind of the main part. And then you have like this ending here. Which just tags like the original intro, same exact part. And the idea here was like really establish a theme and like bring it home in a really epic way. As far as things happening, the bulk of the energy here is drums, but there's still a lot of layers going on. Here's our damage kit. We switched from kind of a triplet feel to just a straight 16th feel. And then every time it comes around, it adds another layer of something. You could see all these coming in. So this is, it won't play for me. Sounds like I'm running out of voices. So that's the idea there. And then I kind of just replicated that on my next drum track to thicken it. Gotta have a gong too. So the whatever, that Gran Casa clicky thing and the snare, I added that clap line back in halfway through to give it some more interest. Kind of establish that it's building again. And then another action ensemble just hitting those big hits. I just liked the way, like, when you have the full loop and you trigger it. Let me show you real quick in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about. So action strikes, you can hold down one key and it does all of that. And then you can change your accents. So if you want like this. So that's the idea. But when you just hit it and get off really quick, you get a really nice kind of one shot. So that was the idea that I did here, was just a lot of those big one shots, because it really enhanced kind of what I programmed with the other drums. Okay, damage loops. I think we are big frozen, so I'm gonna go ahead and force quit. All right, well, it's still loading, but if you're enjoying this so far, let me know down in the comments, or if you want me to elaborate further on any of the sounds or arrangement tips or anything like that, that's always an option. Just let me know down in the comments. Okay, let's try unfreezing this again. Okay. So this is what's happening with damage. Basically, it's a bunch of like single key. I like to go in and just pick some that work well together. So I think I grabbed like 2 or 3 here. So that, with all this, kind of gives it that like that tech or industrial element to it, while you still have like the organic power from the drums. So it's a cool like hybrid thing. And this whole song is very hybrid. Like there's guitars, there's synths, there's organic drums, there's like tech kind of industrial drums all over the map there. Lots of risers and hits and all sorts of stuff here. So here's the build up into that big section. So really accenting those downbeats. I have a big riser coming in. Okay, so I'll show you real quick. I'm not going to break down every single riser here, but definitely could show you how some of these are made. So in Contact, they have a program called Rise and Hit. It's an instrument where you can combine 4 different samples, and the whole thing is like it's a rise and a hit, as the name implies. So you can set a rise time if you want it to like rise over 4 beats, so it'll actually sync with your project. So that's 4 beats, or you could do 1 beat. So I just set it to whatever I want that swell to be. And then you can pick 4 different sound sources, and each sound source can have a different kind of beginning and ending. So I just combined a bunch of different cymbals there, and then there's master effects too, and it looks like I'm not using any of them, but you can EQ the whole thing, you can put a reverb on the whole thing, whatever you want. So this is how I made pretty much all of these different risers in here. I just went in and like either picked a preset and tweaked it, or added my own combination of stuff to get like the sound I was looking for. And the ones that are audio files, I just committed and printed because I was running out of CPU. So that's what's happening there. And like you cannot get that trailer sound without those hits and risers and stuff. Next is the sub down here, the synth, the Moog, whatever you want to call it. Just kind of chilling. So the sub is kind of doing single hits while the pulse is doing its pulsing thing. In this section, I had a ton of like this stuff. So this is called Epic Hook Synth. It was in Alchemy. Kind of annoying by itself. There's this other one called Vacuum Packed I found in Alchemy. Big, thick. Oh yeah. And massive grime bass. Just was looking for the nastiest sounding stuff here. And then that layered with these. So these three sound sources were the same as before, like this thing. But I'm just bending them up slowly. And that increase in pitch just gives it like a nice tension. All right, orchestra. This is really where it kind of comes alive. So I have strings. So big kind of just like intense, scary string motif there. For all my strings, I mixed two libraries. So they're both native instruments, and the first one is the String Ensemble Symphony series, and I mixed that with the Session Strings Pro 2. And they both had a different texture that I liked. So the String Ensemble has that big like ensemble feel that I love. But the Session Strings, especially for staccato stuff, has a really nice like cut to it. So I put those together, and that's kind of what makes that for both string tracks, the low and the high. And then the mod wheel increases as it goes to make it more intense. So that's what the strings are doing. It doesn't provide much to the low end. It's just that kind of tension, like cool rhythm thing. Horns. And then it just keeps climbing, adds the French horn on top, hits the Avengers chord right here. And then tension. And it does not resolve because I wanted the resolve to happen on this thing right here. So the piano is hidden in there and kind of goes with the strings. Just gives it like the atmosphere and the depth, because without it, it's kind of thin, even with the horns. Just sits under it and is that nice kind of soupy atmosphere that I love to put in stuff. We have some plucks going on here. I actually don't like this sound at all, but it works in the context of everything else. So these just kind of climb with everything. So is my keys layer. Okay, guitars. This was fun. I'm a guitar player at heart, so I always love putting in all sorts of guitars. So main rhythm guitars, kind of doing those chords with the horns, just really bright, grimy, nasty. These keep going with the vocals. And then everyone's back in for this ending, and then I have this synth layer again, kind of bending down. Because that was another important texture of the sound. Earlier in the song, we did basically the call and response between the vocals and this part. right? So I wanted both of those featured together at the ending to just say like, hey, exclamation mark, the song's done. And we kept it in the same theme the whole time. And then I did strings and horns along with those synths to do a bend down as well. And it's not even a half step. It's just like sense. It just for that tension, that like dissonance is what I wanted. And all of that's punctuated with drums and risers all pushing into that. So real quick, I'll kind of run through the mixing. So I'll hop around. I don't have time to do every single channel without this video being super long, but I'll go through kind of all the mixing and show what I did. Basically, if you're mixing something like this, I'd recommend starting with your buses, like make sure everything's grouped together and goes to a bus, and then you can treat that bus. So I really kept it kind of light, rolled off some super sub-lows on the drums here, and there was this like nasty mid-range area that I pulled out. I used a lot of C6 on this to just balance kind of the lows and the highs on the drums. Because there's a lot of sounds there, so I wanted to try and balance it all. And then the SSL native bus compressor, I just use waves now, but same thing. Just takes a little bit off the top and adds some punch to it. Again, if you want an in-depth mixing video, I have a handful on my channel, so I'll be sure to link those in the description if you want to learn like how to mix. But this is just kind of trailer-specific mixing tips. The bulk of the drums, I really didn't do too much. Each one got an SSL native, and then I just, would push a little bit here and there to get it to cut better, or just little things like that. And then they all get a little bit of compression as well. But nothing, like I'm hardly doing anything big here, like big moves. It's all just like, what does it need to sit better in the mix? And then all of these get routed at some level to the room reverb here. The reason it's so important when you're mixing this style to group stuff together is number one, it helps save you time because there's a lot of things in this mix. It's not like a band where you have a couple guitars and like a drum set. There's a lot happening, and it's just easier to deal with it at a bus level. And then you can address the channels and figure out what it needs from there. And it's also important that they're grouped together because then when I go to export and like do versions and stems, I can just solo up all this and export this as a stem. And then I can export all the impacts as a stem. This just gives the editors lots of options in case they don't like a certain part of my arrangement. They could just get the stuff they want. Like say you just wanted the orchestra with it. Orchestra and vocals, maybe. Kind of like a more organic feel. Then they'll have stems, and it's really easy for all of that to work together. For my mastering, and those of you who actually master may get mad at me, but I don't really care. I use Ozone, and the reason I don't print this down and take it to a mastering session or something is because I have to do like a bunch of versions and exports of this to make it usable for editors. So it's way easier to just have one mastering chain on Ozone, and then every single version and stem and everything gets printed through the mastering. That way it all has a consistent sound, because if my like full version, like main mix has the mastering, but then all the stems and everything else don't, it's not going to sit right. So that's why I do it that way. I just have it all right there. All the channels go to this mix bus eventually, and then it's getting just a little bit of compression on the whole thing. Other than that, if there's anything I skipped that you really wanted to know about, please let me know in the comments and I'll go back. It's just a lot to cover in one video and keep it, a bite-sized length. Hopefully it's not too long. One cool thing it looks like I did right here, and this will be the last note for it, is I rolled off the lows coming into a buildup. This is like an EDM trick. Like if you've ever heard those EDM buildups where it's like, and it gets like really thin, they're rolling off the low end right before a drop. So this whole buildup here, you can see my lows rolling out. So that way when it comes back in, it just feels really good because all that low end is back, and you might not have necessarily felt it leave, but that's just a fun like EDM kind of making beats trick that I carried over into this style. The only other mixing advice I'd give for this is to really just pay attention to your faders and make sure you automate levels in, because that's going to get you the bulk of the way there. Like 80% of it is just like, can everything be heard? Is everything loud enough? You know, how are things panned? Before you start digging into like, which EQ should I use on this tiny little cymbal, to like, that's not as important as your overall fader level. Thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful to you, please let me know down in the comments. And once again, if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer down there. If you'd like to learn more about me or hear some other songs I've worked on, you can check out my website, and that's down in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe.